What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with macro data, there really isn't that much coming out in the first half of the week, although I do anticipate a lot of volatility, largely because of what came out on Friday. So I'll kind of go over that in a second. Wednesday, we do have a lot of Fed speakers. So Wednesday and Thursday are going to be kind of riddled with them. So that in among itself could cause some volatility. We also do have the MBA mortgage applications. So this one, like the data, hasn't been that great. So this is kind of really escalated the whole consumer level of fear in the broader market. So you might see that resurge. At the same time, a lot of companies putting out their earnings. You have a lot of big speculative names such as RGTI, OKLO. So again, no different than what happened with Palantir, Robinhood, and a couple of others. So even though they did hit key metrics and gave good future guidance, they still did go down. And that's just because Wall Street kind of just said, hey, you know what? Your valuations are just way too high. We're going to knock you down, which I think did kind of spread across the broader market. So that as well could happen this time around because you have a lot of big speculative names. Aside from that, going back over here, Thursday, we don't really have that much, although if we do get some good updates associated to the shutdown, then we might be getting CPI, initial jobless claims, and then on Friday, PPI and retail sales. So this is where I think the market is kind of stuck, and this is why we see record high numbers sitting in money markets, because there isn't really anything clear. And we did get a little bit of a glimmer of hope on Friday, and this is why a lot of stocks did move up quite dramatically during Power Hour because of this rumor. I've already brought this up in previous videos, so I'm not going to kind of dive deep into it. Ultimately, this was quashed and denied, but still, it really goes to show just a little bit of rumor and a glimmer of hope how much the market can turn from very red to very green. So the market ultimately needs a catalyst, and I think at this stage in the game, it is either shutdown related, and whether that's quashed and kind of just finally it ends, or we get kind of optimism for rate cuts. And it's one of those sticky scenarios. Technically, Powell will not be giving any cuts because we haven't been receiving the key labor data that he makes those decisions, because that's one thing that he's been very concerned over for a long time is labor. And so because of the shutdown, we still might see a lot of this key data that Powell would need to kind of determine cuts be paused. So PPI, retail sales, and initial jobless claims and CPI. So definitely that's kind of a catch-22. It's kind of, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place or whatever that phrase is. But it's, I think ultimately the market is going to be really looking for that next catalyst. And if not, then you might be seeing a lot more volatile swings. So I think for those of you that have been really paying attention to the market, the last week and a half has been extremely volatile. And the reason why it's been extremely volatile is algorithmic trading has been, in many cases, what moves a lot of the market. Not necessarily so much in SoFi's case, but a lot of other stocks are being moved through algos. And because big money is sitting in money markets, right? They're just kind of watching and waiting for the next big catalyst. So this upcoming week could be pretty big for the broader market. So just hopefully we do get some level of news associated to the shutdown. Only thing that is planned for this upcoming week specific to SoFi is this. So it looks like they're going to be at the KBW Fintech Payment Conference. It didn't actually state who's going to be doing it, whether it be Chris or Anthony. I do believe a lot of the previous payment conferences, it's Chris that does it. And interestingly enough, on a side note, SoFi didn't put out news that they were going to be participating in this. So normally they've done some official news as what we've kind of seen in the past, saying that they're going to be participating in blah, 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 where like right here, this type of news. So SoFi is participating in this, and they actually put out like formal news about it. So yeah, so I think in general, that should be a pretty good catalyst. Historically speaking, SoFi always does close green on days that they do kind of the fireside chats. So that's something at least positive to look forward to for November the 11th. Only thing that came out after hours on Friday was a couple 4-4s on a side note. So you did have Anthony getting about 2.1 million shares. And this is because of them hitting that milestone. And so yeah, good stuff. I think all of this was already kind of known in advance. I already did a video, a lot of people posting on social media about it as well. And then over and above that though, you did also have a second transaction code F, meaning they were selling for tax purposes. So imagine paying selling 1.1 million shares just to pay the tax man. Crazy stuff, but still good stuff. Most likely Anthony will be getting more of these awards. I do anticipate in the first half of 2026 when they hit the other milestones. So definitely good stuff overall. Aside from that, we did also get this one from Chris Lapointe. So same thing, got about 276,000 shares. Taxman is going to be getting about equivalent 146,000 shares, and they did sell at a price of $27.16. The only other one that did come out, which was this right here, which is kind of interesting, it is George Thompson Hutton, who is a director, and they did kind of gift some shares. So they did get, and they were awarded about 121,000 shares, and then they gifted it. So interesting kind of stuff as far as that goes. Over some kind of the key explanations right here. So it looks like it was given to a trust, a living trust. So yeah, interesting stuff. But in my opinion, I don't think any of these Form 4s are really going to influence the market. I personally don't think anyone is going to be complaining that Anthony got 2.1 million shares at all, because it was well deserved. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, if technically SoFi didn't have these milestones, maybe Anthony and the other management team wouldn't have been so ambitious to kind of strive for higher prices. So I think it's definitely worthwhile. So let me know your thoughts on that. And as well, on a side note, technically right now, SoFi does have 1.2 billion for outstanding shares. So 2 million is a drop in the bucket ultimately. But aside from all of that, going into this upcoming week, 8.36% of the free float is being shorted, works to be 99.02 million shares overall being shorted. Cost to borrow minimum, negative 0.23%. So that's an annual rate, not a daily rate, but it does signal that there is some brokers out there still paying people to short SoFi. From a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that $30 range by the end of this upcoming week. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub kind of 26. So a little bit more back and forth. So a lot more volatility is anticipated, with it closing at that right over at the top right here. So with it closing at 28.21 does mean the 28 and below strike prices are considered in the money. And you have 6,000 at the 28, 2,000 at the 27.50, and then 2,000 at the 27. So you're not going to see any gamma squeeze or anything like that. Even looking forward into this upcoming week, you have 10,000 at that 30, 24,000 at the 31, and then 12,000 at the 31.50. So nothing too crazy. With it closing at 28.21, like I said, it is trading between this S1 and this S2. So for those of you that want to day trade, swing trade, just kind of take a mental note of these. So support and resistance points. So 26.17, 27.73 is going to be support levels, 28.69, 30.25, and then 31.80 as kind of the next strong targets. So just kind of keep those in mind, add them to whatever alerts. But going into this upcoming week, luckily enough, SoFi did have that nice push near the end of the day, was able to get above that 50-day moving average, because historically in SoFi's case, every time it does close below that 50-day moving average, we do see like a 30% push lower, similar to what happened way back in February 2025 when it was at $15. And so because of that, it caused quite the sell-off. So in general, just kind of watch for that for this week. There really hasn't been anything kind of talking about SoFi, so no articles, no analyst ratings. Still might get maybe one or two that have been posted over the weekend. That's going to be kind of officially posted on Monday, and depending on those ratings, you could see maybe SoFi move higher if they're bullish. But given all the fear in the market, and I know how the bears love to strategically give ratings, I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and they give some negative ratings, because they are just going to be trying to attempt to push SoFi a little bit lower, below that 50-day moving average. And if it does break below that 50 and stays there for 2 consecutive days, this is where you will have algos really trying to suppress SoFi. And throughout all of this price action right here, algos, for the most part, in a percentage basis compared to a lot of other stocks, like they haven't really been bothering SoFi, which is rather interesting and unique, but nonetheless, you might see some bearish ratings. On a side note, looking at the market position from Friday and Thursday, you see a little bit more willing buyers, but still that seems to come to about that 27.65. So if there is that push below that 27.65, you could see a lot more kind of volatility in the downside. Looks like a lot of willing sellers roughly around that $30 range. So SoFi could run up to about that 30 in theory before it's really met with any significant resistance. So it is going to be a lot of volatility. I know I've already brought that up like 5 or 6 times, but the market is going to be really kind of torn. It wants a catalyst, it wants a justified reason to move higher. No stock just moves up by itself just based on like speculation. There's a lot of fear that's looming in the broader market, so I think the market really needs to get a catalyst soon in sight. If not, we might be seeing some further consolidation. So at the end of the day, I'm going to give 2 kind of predictions. If we do get a shutdown update and it's positive, then most likely I could see us trading between this R2 and this R1. So between 31.80 and 32.77, which would be pretty much a new 52-week and all-time high for SoFi. If we do not, then I do feel that most likely, looking at the classic, we will be between this S2 and this S3. So between 22.10 and that 26.17. 24.50 on a side note is a very strong support, but I do feel that we will be closing in between there. So it's all going to come down to if we get some good updates from the government and if the shutdown is concluded, because a lot of Fed speakers even just last week said that because of the shutdown, it's going to be starting to impact GDP and a lot of other key data points. And we have a lot of Fed speakers, as I've mentioned this week, so I'm sure a lot of them will kind of reiterate that as well, saying, hey, the shutdown is going to cause blah, 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 and whatever. So hopefully everyone's having an amazing weekend thus far. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.